My mother's been in England. She went to the wedding of Prince Andrew. While she was there, she hobnobbed with all the beautiful people. One of them was Elton John. He gave me these glasses.
I'm freaking adorable. Gay people love me. If you actually think that I was just the right gay guy,
which in my sexual history is not easy for you.
tough titty, said the kitty.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 6th TierMaker episode on the GregsynthWizard channel. Now, this one's going to be slightly different because normally we have 4 people on these TierMakers. But unfortunately, some events outside of our control happened. And for the first time, and hopefully the only time, we'll be functioning as a trio, aka a triangle. But it's okay, because we can talk, and we have the ability to sort of get around issues, and we will do the best that we can do, and we'll make sure that, you know, you get your time honored with entertainment and laughter and comedy, and hopefully some information. And this is going to be sort of a new TierMaker, because one, we are using a updated system. As you can see on the video there, we have an added tier, which is F, but don't worry, that does not come into play for this specific discussion. That may come in the future. So do not worry about that, but I just figured after discussing it with people, having that extra tier will be very helpful in discussions. And also, another thing that's new about this TierMaker episode is this is the first time that we are doing a TierMaker that does not feature Elton John's band at the time. This is the very first time we are doing a solo or Ray Cooper sort of TierMaker. And after pulling the magic number out of the hat, Ray Cooper 1993 showed up. So we decided to go forward with this TierMaker and to talk about the 1993 Elton John and Ray Cooper tour that lasted, you know, just a couple of months, and we have a handful of gigs. And despite the fact that we're down a person, we're gonna make do with what we have, and we're gonna just discuss these as best as we can. We're gonna fill in the gaps, and I think it's gonna be a fantastic TierMaker despite, you know, the slight hiccups. And without further ado, I would like the Elton bootlegs to go first and kind of talk a little bit about, you know, his general thoughts about the tour leg and this era. And, you know, I want to hear his thoughts. And plus, hearing his accent always makes my mood slightly better.
Well, that's a nice thing to say, isn't it? Hello, everybody. Elton Bootlegs is back once again for another TierMaker. They keep dragging me out each one, so I'm happy to be here. Okay, 1993. I said in a previous TierMaker, the 97 one, that I absolutely love this era. And going through these shows again made me realise how much I actually do enjoy listening to this era. It is something different, of course. It's the first proper time since surgery that he's gone out on the road with Ray Cooper. Obviously, there was the gig in 1990, which sounds fantastic. God, I wish it was complete. This tour in general is wonderful. It's a really easy listening tour. You've got Elton and the piano, his 2 pianos, the white Steinway and the black Yamaha, and we'll get more into detail as we go into the gigs. And then you have Ray, who is as energetic as ever, still doing his vocal improvs and sounding fantastic. And I can't wait to discuss these gigs.
Awesome. And normally I would go to Ethan in this case, but unfortunately the man isn't feeling too well at the moment. He's been battling some illnesses, kind of not feeling too well, and just dealing with a lot of stuff. And And I was trying to say, hey, it's okay. You can come on the TierMaker. We won't be too harsh on you, and I'll be nice to you, and say a bunch of kind things about you. But he kept declining, but then I realized after asking some questions, besides being ill, his lungs aren't functioning properly. Sadly, he's drowning in pussy because he recently got 2 new cats, and I congratulate him on getting his new cats and just making sure his life is less miserable. And I just want I'm just letting him know that it's okay, and he will be ready for the next TierMaker. So, is everything okay, Elton Bootlegs?
No. Oh God. Well, I'm pleased to hear that he's drowning in pussy anyway. Oh, Gregory. Oh, God.
What? Look,
you said you had a surprise. Is this a surprise?
So we'll move on from that and kind of see, we haven't even discussed the shows yet, and we're already veering off the beaten path into territory that I wasn't expected to cover, but whatever.
We're going off in unplanned directions.
That's right. No. So Ethan, I'm glad for you. I'm glad that you're happier, and I just want to say that we support you. So there you go. TSS Killer, I want to hear your Bronx accent, because you make sense and you tend to make things make some sort of sense regardless of the topic at hand. So go ahead.
It's funny, Greg. The accent actually has gone down in like the last 15 years. But what I will say though,
I still hear the Bronxness.
I mean, yeah, it's still there, but it's like if you would have known me like 20 years ago, it would have been much thicker than this. So anyway, let's get to business. Yeah, thick like some fucking chocolate. Whatever the fuck that was. Wow, veering off. Anyway, let's sexual chocolate, Mark Henry. It's sexual, baby. Whoa! No. We're getting to Ray Cooper and Elton in '93, and for many years I've known about this tour, and for a long time we've had a few gigs. We've had, the first few gigs that we've seen was New Haven and the video, and then of course Sun City. But then when the Fort Lauderdale stuff came out, and then all the other ones trickled down, like Dallas and then Amherst and then Woodlands, and once you get through all of that, it's a really solid tour, and there's really no gigs can be considered bad, that I would consider bad personally. This was kind of a rebirth of Elton's singing style, because this is the first tour since post surgery that he's gone out and using his natural voice in a solo environment, and with that, you don't get the harshness as much, and he also changes his vocal delivery throughout even this tour, and by 1994. When his voice deepens even more towards the baritonal side, he becomes a better technical singer slowly, and also a better piano player as well. So I really have a newfound appreciation for this tour. Ray is amazing on percussion and vibraphone on this tour as well. And as you're going to hear, some performances from this tour rival the ones on his last solo, his last Ray Cooper tour of '79. So can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm glad Ethan isn't here for you to say that, because I think he would have been very upset, because he and '79 are like, absolutely tight as Toiger. But yes,
we're gonna get you a Dutch bicycle, yeah.
Oh, my skin is peeling, TSS. But the
Greg,
thing is,
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Can I paint you gold? It's kind of my thing.
How about now, you crazy Dutch bastard?
God, I love Austin Powers.
I actually have a friend that lives in Amsterdam, and I want to quote like gold member all the time to him.
As long as it's you who isn't gold, it's okay.
Preparation agent and all this stuff, Whatever. But it's all good. I like it. I mean, it's all in good fun.
Oh yeah, good old Mike Myers. Hey, talking of Mike Myers, great interlude there, because Gregsynth, on this tour, you've got pictures of pictures you use for gigs involving Mike Myers.
You see, we figured things out, way in advance. That's how it works. You guess, and you throw darts at a dartboard, and if they hit the target, you get rewarded with things like this. See, I sort of kind of knew that I wasn't really doing things properly, but it ended up working. So there you go.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's like funny how things work out.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, for this tour leg, I love it. I absolutely love this tour leg. And as much as I like it, and as much as I appreciate the singing and the playing and the musicianship and the set list, it's one of those things where, yes, it's a high level overall, and on its own, without context, it's great. But to me, there's also a second side to it, as this is a great, great foundation to things further down the road in 94, 95, when Elton also does shows with Ray Cooper. And I find that those shows are in the league of their own and just absolutely amazing to listen to. And we can thank this tour leg for starting it, because this is a great foundation to those shows that we'll hear in 94 and 95, and I can't wait to discuss those. But for the late 93 Ray Cooper tour, it's not only a great era to listen to, but it's a fun listen, because a lot of the same qualities that made the 79 tour as great as it is transfer over to this tour, with some key differences. One, Elton is sober. So yes, he is sober here. He's clean, completely clear-headed, which in turn also makes his piano prowess greater, because, I like 79's playing. It's very energetic, and it's great to listen to, and I appreciate what Elton brings to the table in 79. And obviously his vocals are outstanding throughout that year. So, that's a whole different conversation. But as far as the playing is concerned, as much as I like 79's playing and energy, I feel that the 93 stuff, as a comparison, the 93 piano playing, it's more experimental in nature, especially early on in the tour leg. But as Elton gets more and more comfortable with the tour and then the piano change, man, does his playing ever expand. It's like a flower that's blossoming. And I feel that this era right here, the Ray Cooper 1993 stuff, kind of starts a foundation of a post-rehab piano playing peak, where it's not necessarily peak Elton playing yet, but you can so see the signs happening on this tour, and it just gets better and better and better and better as the years go on. So I do consider this tour to be very important in the context of Elton John live performances. And as what TSS alluded to earlier, I feel that this is Elton, reborn in a way. Obviously, when he got clean and sober in 1990, and you hear the Grosvenor House gig, yes, he's reborn. He sounds fantastic. His voice is amazing. Great performances. But, it's a one-off. It's not a tour. It's a one-off. Here, we have an extended tour. And the one tour of 92 and 93, yes, there's great energy and some nice performances. But I'm not really feeling that everything is 100% like revitalized and reborn. His mental state obviously is, his enthusiasm is, so all the key important stuff is on the one, but I feel 93 Ray, this leg takes everything a step further, and you just get the complete package back, firing on all cylinders. More natural singing, cleaner singing, less roughness, more flexible singing, better piano playing, because his piano playing was great on the one tour, and it's much improved over Reg and Sleeping. More energy, more inspired playing, and less mistakes and less randomness that doesn't fit.
Especially in Argentina.
Well, he worked on his clapping skills, and he's great at timekeeping, almost as great as Charlie Morgan. But still, but for this 93 stuff, you just hear everything is put up front, and you can just hear the growing prowess of his playing and singing too. So this era to me is very important for Elton's live career. And there may be gigs where we may not rank at the tippy top or something, but I still find that it's a very important era. And it's definitely worth a discussion. And what better way to discuss Elton John gigs than to talk with my colleagues from the United Kingdom and the Bronx. I think that's a good idea. How about you?
Yeah, I guess so.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll start things off with the very first show of the tour, which is Fort Lauderdale. Elton John played 3 Fort Lauderdale shows, and thankfully all 3 of them are caught on tape, and we have access to them, and we can discuss them.
All right.
So the first one is very important too, on its own, because not only is it the first gig of the tour, and it took a little while to kind of get all the, all the stuff in order, because I didn't want to start, putting out wrong information. But the Fort Lauderdale shows on this tour are the last 3 gigs where Elton plays with his white Steinway. That's the famous white Steinway you see on the 84 tour at Wembley. You see it on the 86 tour on those videos. So this is that classic white Steinway that you will see and hear through 80 to 86. Elton brought it back, and he was obviously experimenting with the MIDI and everything with this Steinway. So this era kind of catches him playing around with things and trying to get a feel for his live sound. So it's very interesting to hear, and his live sound changes and further gets tinkered with as the tour leg progresses, and we'll probably talk about the sound setup too. But for this first Fort Lauderdale show, it's a very good starting gig. It's a very good foundation to this tour. And there is some remarkable performances, I tell you. Elton's voice is in excellent shape, very strong. Tone is nice and clean. And he kind of reminds me of a blend of a little bit of Prime Live with the better aspects of his post-surgery voice from the late 80s, but with a better tone, and obviously a little more mature and deeper sounding. But I love his singing. About this gig, there are some nerves on display. Obviously, things are still kind of being worked out, but it's a very high level. There's some experimental playing on I Don't Wanna, which as the tour progresses, that gets fine-tuned, and there's some remarkably great solo work, especially when you start getting into the middle of October. But it's a very solid starting show. The singing to me is probably the highlight. That's the one thing that really gives the show its really good reputation. I love hearing stuff like I Think I'm Gonna Kill Myself sung in that 93 voice in its peak shape. It's just as good as the 79 tour. There's a lot of gliding on the gig. There's a lot of instances where he turns back the clock. It's just, his vocals are good, really good, excellent shape. And yes, things do improve as the tour goes on in terms of fine-tuning specific lines on songs, and certain deliveries are better. But for raw vocal shape, his condition is fantastic at this show, and likely the best for the tour leg, and maybe for the Ray Cooper tours in general for the 90s. But for me, Fort Lauderdale is an excellent starting point. I'm throwing it straight into S tier. Fantastic. And I can't say enough good things about it. Very strong. TSS killer.
All right, so so for me, this one vocally is the absolute best one on this tour. And as Greg mentioned, some of the vocal deliveries on this are freaking sublime. Like Levon, for example, he hits pretty much all the pre-choruses. The only thing really he doesn't hit is the B flat on "He Wants to Go to Venus." But also, we have a rare instance where it's we have stuff like Indian Sunset, where it legitimately sounds. He has the same kind of relaxed delivery that it probably would have sounded like in the 80s, where it's like very, very, he'll have maybe like some soft, but that some glidiness to the deliveries. And these 3 Fort Lauderdale gigs are the only times in his career that he's actually played "I Don't Want to Go On With You Like That" on a Steinway. And to be honest, they sound great. I do love the resonant bass that the Steinway delivers. But as Elton would, progress with the tour, he figured that the MIDI setup wasn't working because the piano would be a little bit muddy, and we're going to get to details about that later. But for me, even though there are faults with the piano, like piano playing and stuff and experimentation, the voice carries this gig, and it's ultimately at its peak. Now, on this tour, I think I'm going to kill myself. There's 3 key notes that he would go for that he did on the 79 tour. We're not counting the C5 on "Who Do They Think They Are," because he would never hit it after surgery. The first one is on the end of the verse with the surprise, and then we have "I'll Make an Exception," and then the last one is "Every Night." Those are the 3 key A4s, and this is the only gig where he actually goes and hits all those A4s on top. And later on during the tour, he would drop some of the notes, but this is the only gig post-surgery where he hits all of the key notes correctly, including in the chorus, and including the A4 tips in the choruses too. And for that purpose, this gig gets an all-star from me.
All right.
Oh wow!
And I also want to add something on top of that. It's kind of funny that you still have people today complaining about Elton's voice post surgery, and it's like, come on, guys. I mean, this is legitimately like excellent work. I mean, come on. Like, I think I'm gonna kill myself from this gig. He legitimately sings everything exactly like the record. The C5 that's mentioned now, the embellishment, that's not on the record. He legitimately sings all the album phrasing and notes here in '93, 20 years after, it came out. So you gotta give Elton credit. And yeah, it's like, I just had to say that because it's just, I think his post-surgery stuff, there's gems and there's good stuff. You don't have to have a young Elton. You don't even have to have prime live Elton, to make a performance sound excellent live in terms of singing. As long as he sounds great and delivers great performances, I don't give a shit what era, his voice is in. And thankfully, this tour leg's full of great performances. Sorry, had to get that off my chest. Elton bootlegs.
I'm in your camp with this, Greg. I put this show into the S tier. Vocally, it's amazing. I think I'm gonna kill myself. If you were doing like you remember how back in the day you look for the
best vocal performances of songs. If you were to put together a list of Elton's best vocals post-surgery, this would be right up there. He nails
sure.
it.
Yeah,
It's amazing. And it's fantastic to hear again. Also, we must remember as well that he basically throws a gimmick to the crowd because he starts playing it in the first half of the show, but really he's going into I Don't Want to Go On With You Like That. But we've retitled it to I Think I'm Going to Go On With You Like That. But
hey, that's why classical training comes in. So there you go.
The reason I put this in the S tier is that I put together his voice and the piano playing. And while it's great at this gig, don't get me wrong, there are still instances where he's finding his feet with that. So you actually listen to I Don't Wanna, he plays it in a much different way to how he would. In fact, he doesn't play the parts of it. He's sort of working the song out, which is fine. But this song really evolves as the tour goes on musically. Some of these performances are amazing. By the way he sings it here is fantastic. I love how natural he sounds in this song. And you'll see you hear like the really old songs at the beginning, like your song Skyline Pigeon, 6 Years On, The Greatest Discovery. And it also makes me smile at this gig that you have very knowledgeable audience members who sound like how we would if we went to an Elton gig.
Yeah, they know these songs. These are old school fans.
Especially when Elton comes out at the beginning and says, I'm going to be playing songs I've not played for about 15 years. And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell's he going to play tonight? The whole first set is fantastic. Then Ray joins in and it is just as good. In terms of musical performances, there will be some that are better later on in the year. But for a start, this is great. And it is a show that we all love very much. I will give this an S.
And maybe thinking, and I'm thinking, as I'm kind of thinking about specific performances at the show, it wouldn't be out of the question if this was, upper S, because I just threw it in S, but because I'm thinking about it, and it's like, you talk about the starting songs, they are all those ballads in the mid range are absolutely fantastic. Like, for some reason, it's like this voice, and we can say the same thing about 94, 95 Ray Cooper, but this specific timbre and vocal shape and delivery that Elton has during this time just fits these ballads like supernatural. Like, they sound so good. Like if you want some highlights on all these gigs, the first 6-7 songs are easily going to be excellent, because that tone is amazing. And I appreciate this show a lot. And I don't know what you two's thoughts are about this, but I've had some people actually ask me if this gig specifically was Elton's best post-surgery show or his best show after getting sober on a tour leg. And I'm like,
wow.
Well, it's like
there's some truth. There's some truth in that, but I would say that some of the 97 ones would actually be better because there's actually some better use of portamento, which and a more mature delivery.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I can see both ways in that instance because, yes, he's more experimental in 97 and he does more things with his voice and he plays around with it. But, man, some of those performances on this tour where he sings straight, are just, they sound great. I mean, like, on this show and the next show, you get to hear stuff like We All Fall in Love Sometimes.
Yeah, it sounds really good.
Yeah, and Curtains, and it's like, they sound amazing. Like, I will listen to those two versions any day of the week, not get tired.
Mm-hmm.
What about the 75 versions of them? Would you listen to them without getting tired?
How can someone be tired when they listen to that garbage? But I'd be up.
Well, the man on stage was tired. I mean,
it doesn't count. But still, because those performances abuse the listener and legitimately hurt the listener's ears and cause eardrum perforations. This is good stuff on this tour.
Mm-hmm.
Also, as well, we have the first performance since '84 of Crocodile Rock, where Elton does his speech beforehand, which I love at this gig. Sting told me to play it, and I said, Fuck off. Actually, I say first recorded version, I must say. There was a version, obviously, before this, because otherwise you wouldn't have played it. I also enjoyed, by the way, we have in 79, we have Saturday Night going into Pinball Wizard. This time we have Benny going into Pinball Wizard, and I think it works.
Yes.
The only problem that I have, and this is me being greedy, by the way, I wish there was more of a solo to Benny before you go into Pinball Wizard, because I think that could have been a real stamping point for this tour. A bit like Saturday was, where they did a properly extended version. It's a shame they didn't do it the Steinway either.
but also one more song that I think should get mentioned is "The North," because because Elton played it at Nashville in '92 for the Dee Murray tribute, but this is the first like proper tour with it stripped down, and I gotta tell you, these live versions are just so much better than the record version. There's no overproduction. It's stripped down to its core. A great Elton vocal and some great piano playing. That's how the song should have sounded.
Yes.
On the record. Unfortunately, we got what we got on the one, and Chris Thomas needs to never produce anything again like that, because it hurts.
Unfortunately, that happened like 2 more times.
Yeah, can't win them all, but still, listening to The North on the record hurts my soul, because I know it's a good song.
Yes.
Because these live versions we have prove it. But man, if you take a good song and just throw layers and layers and layers of effects on it and overproduction, it just ruins it. It's like sometimes less is more. And this is one of these cases where you just need an Elton vocal and a piano.
And that's why Made in England sounded better.
Yes, because it's a great album too. Thank you, Greg Penny. I love you. Okay. So you have it at All-Star TSS, and I have it at... I think it's a strong S.
Yes,
so.
I agree. No, I agree with that. For me, the only reason why it's on there is because it can compete with the best 80s stuff, in my opinion.
I agree with that. I think this gig should not, for post-surgery in general, shouldn't be ignored, but this gig does have legitimate performances that can rank alongside Prime Live. And it's some of the best vocals you'll hear from them live during this time frame.
We forgot to mention Tonight. Tonight sounds just like 86.
Yeah, Tonight sounds legitimately sounds.
Falsetto, though.
Yeah. It sounds very similar to the 90 version.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's like, I wish he would have went for the falsetto, because I know he could do it. I know he could do it during this time.
On this tour,
I know
he could have, definitely.
But I mean, he does a good job. But it's like, it's one of these things where it's like, what if? And it's like, well, can't win them all, but I'll take it.
Yeah.
So nice strong S.
Okay.
So TSS.
Yes.
I'll have you start the second Fort Lauderdale.
Well, the second Fort Lauderdale definitely is a huge difference in terms of vocal tone, because he does sound a bit rough on this show. You can definitely tell it in songs like Leave On, where you have him like hitting some of the pre-chorus notes not as cleanly, and the chorus notes as well. The outro is not as daring as the first gig, because the first gig was actually the last time, well, actually one of the first times since 84, actually the first time since like, I want to say like August of 86. Well, actually, yeah, since August of 86, where he actually hits the outro completely on G. That was for the first gig. The second gig, he kind of tones it down just a little bit. So you got some weird, piano stuff happening, like these are the first times that you hear Elton start to notice things about the mix that he's not happy about. But that combined with the rougher voice, even though he still goes for most of the notes, Kill Myself, he doesn't hit a couple of the A4s clean on top, but the energy is still there. The piano playing on like I Don't Want It is better than the first night. but I would still say that this gig is still worth a listen to, even though his voice is a little bit rougher. I'll put this in S as well. I'll put this in the mid S because it is improved a little bit musically from the first night, but the voice did drop a little bit from that night.
Yeah, Elton bootlegs.
TSS has literally stolen the words exactly out of my mouth.
So,
Thievery.
Well, to be fair, the music at this gig for me is better. Obviously, Elton's a bit more confident with his playing, but I agree with TSS with what he says about the voice. Just the tone isn't as sweet as it is on night one. Also, 60 years on, he has the feedback and the very strange sound with the Steinway when they're trying to go through the midsection, which he fixes, thankfully. I also love Before I Needed to. I've just had to scream at someone. You can actually envisage, you can imagine it happening it as well. Like,
I mean, yeah. He probably pulled the same phases as like Buenos Aires '92.
Or 95 in Germany.
Yeah.
I wonder if he was snapping his fingers at this show. But,
oh dear. But again, as paired up with the first gig, it's still a fantastic listen. And my score is the exact same as TSS. It's just a notch below the first night.
All right. I'm gonna be the odd man out here, and I'm willing to hear the counterpoints here, because the thing is, I agree with whatever everyone was saying, but I think it's 2 notches down. I think this is low S, because while I do agree that the playing is a bit more focused in places, and he does sound a little more confident overall on the piano, even though he still makes mistakes on songs that weren't made on the first night, so there's still sort of that thing going on. The voice, it's still in great shape, but yeah, I do agree there is it's a tad bit less effortless. It's a little more rough in spots, although some of the deliveries and specific sections of songs sound tightened up, so it's almost like you're getting a compromise of, okay, it doesn't sound nearly as sweet and effortless, but, I mean, he makes up for it here, so it's sort of like there's some trade-offs happening here. And yes, I do agree there are technical issues at the start, and that sort of, I think that kind of plays into the gig a bit, some of the speed bumps. But I do think it's definitely worth a listen, and especially if we have the complete show now, because a lot of stuff, well, not a lot, but like 3 or 4 songs were missing off the really good copy that was circulating, but now thankfully we got the whole thing, so it's always worth a listen. I agree with the ranking, the general tier ranking, but I really think that it's a notch below what you two are saying. I honestly think it's low S, not mid S, because I think that stuff improves later on, and I think there's just a little, because it's what you were saying, the tone is a little rougher. Okay, that's fine. And then, yes, some things improve vocally, some things improve on the piano, but there's still mistakes. There's still issues being ironed out. But it's still very, very good. So I think it belongs in S, but a low S, and that's just me personally.
Okay. Well, at least we agree where the general placement is, and it still is a fantastic show.
Yeah, absolutely. It's still worth a listen, and the advantage I'll give this show over the first one for quality-wise is it's a much easier listen for the most part. Mm-hmm. There's a higher gen source that I use to kind of fill in the gaps, but it's complete now. So hey, I try to make things work, but
that's good.
It's good. It's complete.
You do your best.
I do what I can do. As long as people are happy and able to hear the stuff, it's fine.
Yay.
So we're good with the second night?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start the third night. Yes, okay. I'll start with the third night. The third night, This is a fun listen because this is the very last show that Elton is on the Steinway. And at the end of this show, it was reported and it was talked about in a Yamaha article in the 2000s where Elton walked off the stage after the show and he said to his sound technician that he can't play that piano anymore because he couldn't stand the mix and it was too muddy and he was complaining, and so obviously needs a new piano. So after the Fort Lauderdale shows ended, the next tour stop would have been New Orleans, which would have been on October 5th. And that's where he got his new piano at the time, the MIDI Grand. And so you want to know where he purchased this? He didn't purchase it. He borrowed it from a university in New Orleans. So, and they never saw it back. So Elton just swooped in like a hawk, stole the piano, and went back out on tour. That's how to do things. But I'm glad he got that issue fixed, and we can talk about the new piano as we get into the later gigs. But back to the third Fort Lauderdale. For some reason, even though the quality isn't great, especially, compared to the, second night, there's something about this show that just intrigues me because I know towards the end of the night, Elton cuts a couple songs off the set. We All Fall in Love Sometimes and Curtains, likely due to the frustrations with the Steinway MIDI setup because he cuts Crazy Water down, quite significantly. So we're missing that. But if I were to take all that out of the equation, it's like it's a really intriguing listen because his singing is excellent and the playing is even better than the previous night and the night before it. Like in terms of vocal shape, the very first night is the best, obviously, out of the three, no question. All in all, I love this show, even though the quality is not great. Because I think at this show, we start to really hear some noticeable strides with the playing. Like the I Don't Wanna solo, really good. More focus than the previous two, and vocals are strong. I think I'm going to kill myself. This is the last known version where Elton goes for all the key notes, even though not all of them are hit cleanly. I'll give him points for trying, but it's not the first night. So I'll leave it at that. I really feel that this gig is mostly an improvement over the second one in pretty much all the important areas. And I think Elton's frustration with the MIDI and the Steinway kind of channels into some of the performances where he sounds more assertive, and he's not letting this frustration really get to him in a way that it would negatively affect performances, but he's just, I wouldn't have known anything was really wrong, apart from the missing songs and then the story we hear after where he walks off the stage and, discusses the piano. But for me, third Fort Lauderdale, better than night 2, but night 1 is still a little bit better. So I want to throw Fort Lauderdale low to middle S for me personally. So I'll put it kind of right in between the two. Elton Bootlegs, how about you?
I would also throw this into the mid S, but I also have the feeling that for one or two factors in this gig, this could rank higher. Because I agree with you, Greg, that the singing on this gig is amazing. I actually think the Greatest Discovery for the 93 leg is one of the best versions, if not the best.
I agree.
Oh, it
totally
sounds so good. And all I think is Australia 86 without nodules. This is how it would have sounded.
Yeah, these versions are just amazing.
Although that said, I don't mind the Sydney version, the Melbourne version.
Well, the greatest discovery. Look what happened to your throat.
Maybe that's why I put it in a set. no. To be fair, it did have orchestration on it, and it needed to be done anyway.
Well, Bernie's brother slapped him in !86, so this is making up for it. So
I think Bernie slapped him as well. He turned up, I think, in Australia at one point. But no,
I'm sorry. I had to
set Greg off here. Oh, great.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just love the harp player. That's what.
A song that we've not mentioned yet, actually, is "Talking Old Soldiers." This is brilliant. And now the first night's version is great, but it improves as the tour goes on, because obviously it's a song he's not sung for years, and this is an elite version. It is. I'm gonna have to do it. Mwah.
Yeah, let's go.
Mwah.
Yeah, it's the control. It's the control. The control is so good.
It's amazing. Another song that we haven't mentioned yet is "A Woman's Needs," which is a lovely song, and I love this version in particular as well. I also love the speeches for that song as well every night. Oh, you're gonna have to guess which part I sing.
And with my sexual background,
wow. Also, this gig as well tonight is very, very close to '86 versions. I mean, most of them are, but this one especially, because he's on the Steinway for the last time.
Yeah, and there's something about that version where there's a little more gliding and it's smoother, in terms of some of the sections. It could come off of. It sounds like late '86 without nodules.
Yeah,
that's literally what it sounds like.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I'm going to kill myself over the last version with the keynotes. It's still great, fantastic version. Pilot is beginning to work its way forward. Once we get to the Yamaha in that song, there's some amazing versions. Don't Let the Sun is terrific at this gig. Now, for the negative point, Crazy Water. This is the candidate for probably the best version of the song post-surgery. Because he's nailing the song.
Yeah, the vocals are great.
And then he loses his temper. He stopped there, he just stops the song. Basically, what we gather is that he's trying to do these piano runs and there's something not quite right with the mix. And instead of persisting, he just stops. As a result, we lose a couple of songs from the gig as well. And that's probably one of the reasons why I knocked the show down. And it sounds quite a petty thing to say, actually. But obviously, the artist's mood has got to be a factor. And that's why I put it underneath the first show but above the second show. It's still a great show, and it's one that I will go back to very frequently and listen to. I also will say one other thing. I agree with Greg again that the quality of the show isn't great, but there's an endearing sound to it. I don't quite understand what, but sometimes with recordings that aren't in as good a quality, they might hit you in the right place. Sometimes I even prefer these as very good audience or even soundboards, because soundboards can sound dry as hell, but this one's got a resonating sound, and it makes the Steinway sound amazing as well. So I love this gig. I'm going to give it a mid-S.
TSS, you're on.
Okay, this goes in the higher echelon of S for me, but once again, it's going to be below the first and above the second. Amazing voice here. I think what Elton Bootlegs here saying about the recording is that sometimes you can find a location inside of a venue where you have like the sweet spot of how the mix is, like where you have the PA. So I think this person got a great view of the PA and it was well balanced. So even though the tape isn't in the best shape, the acoustics and the location of the taper makes that makes all of the difference here. The first like, oh my goodness, 9 or 10 songs are just amazing to hear, especially with a very clean tone. And the more he's kind of finding his footing on like phrasing songs now. And you start to hear it in songs like Indian Sunset now, where he's starting to adopt some of the deliveries he would deliver on like the 94 and 95 stuff, which I really like. Other than just the piano snafus, overall it's just a better gig than the second night, 100%. And also, like I said, this is the last gig with the Steinway, and having I Don't Wanna, like I said, that especially on this recording, you really hear the bass resonance, and I generally like it. So this goes in the upper S part for me, but it's going to still be below the first night, but above the second night.
So, but think of it this way: if you didn't have the issues where Elton cut the songs, so we still had a full Crazy Water, and we still had the We All Fall in Love Sometimes in Curtains. So basically the same.
It would have been for me. It would have been top S leaning towards All Star.
Yeah, but you would still put it under the first night.
Yeah, I would still put it under the first night because the vocal delivery on the first night is so close to 80s.
Yeah, it would be a tougher bet for me but I think I would be torn because the musical aspect.
Yeah, the musical aspect is much better. Yes, I agree with that.
That's where I would be.
Yeah, the first night though is as close as his 80s voice as you'll ever get.
Yeah, and so it'd be tough for me because it'd be like, well, musically it's better, but vocally the first night is supreme. So, but they would both kill the second night. So
yeah, absolutely, I'd agree with that.
Elton Bootlegs, you were going to say something, I think.
Pretty much that.
So
it's essentially what I was saying about with them two songs missing. I'd have been torn, I think, between them, but because of what happened there, that sort of tempers my enthusiasm for it. Not by much, but it's enough for me to say that the first night is the best of the three.
Well, here's the thing. We got our 3 Fort Lauderdale shows up there, all in the S tier. What a great start.
Yes.
TSS. Woodlands calls your name. You start.
Okay. So Woodlands is a very bizarre gig because number one, I do not like the mixing of the Yamaha on this gig. I don't know what it is now. We're going to mention this as well, but so when the New Orleans show happened, Gelton changed his piano setup to the Yamaha Midi Grand along with a Roland MKS 20, which he would use for a while. I believe the MKS 20 got replaced by a Roland Motif somewhere in the early 2000s. So that's why the piano sound is different. But on this show, for some reason, I can feel that they were still ironing out the kinks because on the early songs there was issues with the piano mix. Like for example on I Don't Wanna, even though the solo is really good, the mixing of the MKS 20 rack was actually not in synchronization with the Yamaha, and it was causing some sort of harmonic like echo dissonance that I don't like. Also on this gig, Levon is the most conservative version on this leg, which doesn't make any sense because he is an okay vocal shape. He just doesn't go for any of the G's in the pre-chorus. He drops all the notes, and he doesn't even go for like stuff on the outro either. Very lackadaisical delivery in that respect.
Greg loves that word.
Yeah, he loves that word indeed. All other aspects of the show are fine. Like the vocal shape is fine. It's just that the piano mix in the first half was not good. And like I said, Levon is a very weak performance. So this for me is a low A.
Low A. That's looks a bit different than the Fort Lauderdales. For me, the Woodland show is very interesting. Because this took place on October 8th. And this is the third show with this new setup, the Yamaha and the MKS 20. So you're most likely right in the sense that they're still trying to figure out the best balance of sound and trying to play around with settings, because I wish we had tapes of the New Orleans and the Baton Rouge shows before.
Yeah,
because
I wish.
Because I'm thinking maybe they're figuring things out there. Maybe there's technical issues and snafus. Maybe it's, it'd be really interesting, because this is still a very early show with this new setup. So I'm not surprised that there's some tech issues and mixing issues and everything. But I'm glad we have it on tape so we can listen to this. But the Woodland show is if you have improvements in some areas, small improvements, but some big issues in other areas, it's like, okay, that sort of negates the improvements a bit, if you're going to try to average out something. Like for example, or on the first section of the show where it's just Elton. I think he sounds great overall. Like his voice is great. The deliveries are powerful and punchy and great. And like 60 years on, there, even if the mix isn't settled right, he's still doing a lot of like creative playing and lines and stuff. So it's weird that maybe he's hearing something different in his mix compared to what we're hearing.
Probably
because because it is bizarre. I'll definitely agree with you on that. And yeah, I Need You to Turn To and Grace Discovery are fantastic vocally. Still has very good vocal dynamics, and I love his voice on those songs. One thing that just is a sore spot on this show is that damn Where to Now St. Peter, where he doesn't know where he is, where he's like, so in the first verse, like I don't know what happened, but he fucks up the piano so badly that he's like repeating sleep, like the word sleep, and he's literally trying to like get out of trouble, and eventually he does. But I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, maybe you're right. Maybe he can't hear the mix.
The mix is fine. Well, and also, Greg, the crazy thing about this gig too is that on the I Don't Wanna, he tries to go for like the A4 at the end, but hits it flat. Like,
yeah, and it's like, yeah, I'm glad he goes for it, but if it's not hit exactly right, then. You know.
So there definitely has to be like issues with the piano mixing. I think like for the straight like Yamaha sound it was fine, but the MKS-20 there was some issues with that mix.
Yeah, and it's disappointing because the solo on I Don't Wanna I love.
Yeah. Creatively, like musically creative is fine, but what makes that version like really bad is just like I said, the delay and the off sync, and that's a shame.
Yeah, because if there weren't issues at the show,
it would have been one of the best. It would have been right up there, probably with the Fort Lauderdales in that instance, but. The energy's still there, and there's a song that I'll bring up that I don't believe has been brought up before, but "Better Off Dead" sounds great this tour. Like it's sung aggressively. It reminds me of Prime Live, but with a mature voice. In the sense of how he's attacking the lyrics. Yeah, and the voice and the vocal delivery.
Yeah, so
it's like 79, just a bit more mature. That's all it is.
Yeah,
I mean, actually, I would actually say it's more closer to 85.
Yeah, it has elements of 79, 85. 79 because Ray, and 85 because of maturity. So
yeah,
I agree with both of you. We're good.
And 85 because of Ray as well. Woohoo!
Maybe a bit of Euro 86 because that's when his voice started. His voice transitioned too.
That's a fair point. So we'll include 85, 86 in there too.
Good old Rotterdam 86. Oh
yeah.
Why couldn't we have put that in the S tier? I mean, I'm
you're going back on
that. Well, to be fair,
To be fair, if I had a personal TierMaker, I'd be trying to put it in the All-Star.
and I'd be
It's just
swooping
so
down
good.
like a hawk and moving
I know.
that to
In a world somewhere, it would be an all-star gig. But then again, you could say that about any gig going. So
That's pretty true. Yeah.
someone somewhere will have 914 as their all-star gig. Don't forget.
Oh, yeah.
Stay tuned for the next TierMaker.
Yeah,
And it's not me.
yeah. Oh, if you think I'm putting that gig in All-Star, you're out of your freaking mind.
Well, it's all-star for quality.
But never mind. Anyway, back to this
My
gig.
sweet love.
No.
Mr.
Massive
Paul.
No.
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 All right, so
take me out to the
Woodlands.
Take me out to the woodshed in the woodlands. I don't know what's going on, but but basically, for this show, I lost my fucking train of thought. Hang on. Okay, so basically, the show has a lot of good in it, great performances, but there's misfires. There's some off moments. The mixing is not where it should be.
Yeah.
And gutsy attempts at stuff are great, but if it's not hitting the mark, then
It's not good.
Yeah, I guess not. Just because you kind of get close to the target doesn't mean you hit the target. But yeah, to me, Woodlands, I have a respect for it, just for like some of these performances are just so creative, but I have to acknowledge the faults on it too. So I don't know if I would put it in low A, because there's some gigs later on where I'm a little iffy on, but
Yeah, I know.
but it'll stay in A tier. I'll just keep it A, like a solid
A too. Yeah.
I'll keep it A, solid A, and maybe at the most, yeah, solid A. Elton bootlegs.
I'd have it a little bit higher than a low A myself. Obviously, it's the first gig with the Yamaha, and you can, recorded gig with the Yamaha, but you can tell there's a difference with his playing even here from the Fort Lauderdale shows. It feels like he's more free and expressive in his piano playing. That said, there are moments at this gig that are a fair bit weaker than the Fort Lauderdale gigs. So, two performances. I mean, again, you've got the older songs at the beginning. 60 years on, we will mention the piano setup now. It sounds good, so we don't have to worry about the midsection sounding off. Again, the ballads, they sound fantastic. It's just as you work your way into the set, you have Where to Now St. Peter. That is hilarious. It's like when I first heard that, I was like, "What's he doing?" I had to listen.
He doesn't
to it
know what he's
again.
doing.
He doesn't know.
Doesn't know what he's doing.
Doesn't know it. No. That would be coming soon. And then when Ray joins in as well, yeah, there are some points with his voice as well where there aren't as strong as it is at Fort Lauderdale. At least now that, I mean, they've obviously taken We All Fall in Love Sometimes and Curtains out, so now the set list is pretty much set. Although we do have an addition, and I'll give a shout out to Daniel Likes Album, because Daniel makes its first appearance on the tour. Yeah! What a wonderful song it is. And this is it's a good, solid start for that song. There are better versions probably later on in the year. But yeah, I'm between a low A and a mid A. I'd slightly be more mid-A than low, because there'll be shows to come that I probably put lower.
Oh, so we're all three of us are in the ballpark.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah, we are. I can't believe whatever. Charge. But forgot the melody per se. So Elton bootlegs. Since you sound enthusiastic and are in a mood to talk, let's start Dallas, please.
Let's start Dallas. Now, Dallas. A place that throughout the years Elton has visited on bootlegs, and we've had great fun listening to these gigs, especially 84. Oh my god. If you want a mad show, go listen to that.
He said mad, not bad.
I said mad. It's
mad.
not a bad show. It's hilarious. It's one
Yeah.
of the funniest things you'll ever hear.
It's a very
I mean, some
interesting.
people may say there are some bad moments on it where he doesn't know where he is. Thankfully, here is a lot different. It's still a great show.
and he knows where he is this evening. So I have this show a mid to high A. So this is an improvement upon the previous gig, Woodlands. But the slight problem that we have here is that that the voice sort of goes away from him towards the end of the show, and it is noticeable as well. So the song that probably causes it for me is I Think I'm Going to Kill Myself, because he's still, although he's not going for everything, he still gives it a good go. And that, along with Indian Sunset as well, because he's singing that with a lot of forced notes and confidence. Yeah. I think both them combined knocks the voice a bit, and it just doesn't recover as much as it would on other gigs throughout the year. Piano playing again is really good. I Don't Wanna is, the solo is, again, mwah. It is, and the vocals as well are amazing. I will go as far as to say that I think, for me personally, the best vocals for this song come on this leg. 93 to 95. I just love solo versions. Don't get me wrong, I like the band versions from later on, like 97, 98. I just feel these sound more natural, and there's less growling as well. That's just a personal preference. This is still a very nice listen, especially with the tape sound as well. Because from now on, barring Sun City, the rest of them, some of them can get pretty rough. So this is a nice, easy listen. So I'm going to edge to... I said mid to high A. I'd probably go towards mid A if I was going to be cementing a spot. So mid A for Dallas goes above Woodlands.
For me, Dallas is one of those shows where there's a little bit of a roller coaster effect with the vocals. We'll start with the vocal side of things, because at the start of the show and during the first section, the voice sounds excellent. Like, we've mentioned songs like Greatest Discovery and 60 Years On and I Need You to Turn To. But I feel that I Need You to Turn To and The Greatest Discovery in particular are some of the best versions on this tour, like, because I can't quite put my finger on it. It might be the recording playing tricks on me, but at least for the section where it's just Elton and the piano, he like eases off like the more like aggressive, like punchy sort of style, and he kind of lightens up the deliveries on some of these songs, and they sound really nice. Like there's a really pleasant sounding tone to his voice. Like there's a lightness, almost a youthfulness in some way. And I had somebody comment on, I think it might have been The Greatest Discovery, and they were mentioning just how great he sounds singing it. And yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the absolute best versions of the song you'll hear in a live environment. And the I Don't Want to solo is again evolving. It's a fantastic solo, and Elton's intonation's better at this one compared to the Woodlands. And another song that I don't believe was talked about was the last song.
Yeah.
That song I've always enjoyed listening to, but I feel on these on this tour in particular, when you got him in the strictly solo environment, it breathes additional life into the song, and Elton just sounds fantastic on it, and he would further improve his delivery on it when we get into the 94 stuff. But this version from Dallas, I feel, is one of the best versions with the original vocal phrasing before he started to embellish higher in some parts, and it's just an all around. It's a fantastic version. When you get to the Ray Cooper section of the show, Elton's really enthusiastic. Obviously he's singing his ass off. He's a lot of hard belting and forceful belting. So yeah, very aggressive singing. But like what Elton Bootleg said, I think the back-to-back stuff going on with Indian Sunset and I think I'm gonna kill myself kind of takes a little bit of a toll on his voice because Daniel has him sounding a bit coarse. Sorry Seems, he actually, he kind of recovers a bit for Sorry Seems. So it's a kind of a temporary thing at that point. And then later on, he sounds a little rough when you get past Crazy Water and Crocodile Rock, but it's not really a major issue, but it's to the point where you can definitely tell a difference between the solo vocals and the Ray vocals. But overall, I do feel the show overall is better musically than Woodlands. And by this point, I think they got the mix or most of the mix issues taken care of. So, slight roller coaster issue thing with the vocals, but still great. I honestly, Dallas, it's better than Woodlands. I agree, but high A. I'll give it high A. TSS Killer.
Agree with Greg and Elton Bootlegs here. It does deserve to be in a high A. Finally, the Yamaha and the MKS-20 mix seems to be worked out. The I Don't Want a Solo is getting to really fantastic levels. The vocals are not going to be there yet, which in my opinion are going to happen a couple shows down the road. But for the most part, as we've said, the bulk of the gig, and aside from those 4 or 5 songs, in the kind of like the latter half of the set where Elton blows out his voice, it sounds excellent. Like the voice does sound excellent. Levon, he actually goes back to hitting the pre-choruses on G, and he's a lot more into it instead of being conservative. It's really nice. Indian Sunset, like I said, he pretty much pushes the gas a little bit too far, and that's why he blows his voice out a little bit. But by the end of the show, he gets it back, and it really does make a recovery. Because sometimes with some of these gigs where Elton would blow out his voice and then he wouldn't recover from it. It would basically stay at the same lower level throughout the entire rest of the gig. But here he makes a drastic recovery. It makes somewhat a recovery, and he ends up the show very well. So with that being said, it's still going to go in the higher A category for me, and it is better than the Woodlands because, like I said, finally they got the mix right on the piano.
Yeah, and it's like when I first heard Dallas way back in the day, there was an early review of the show that said, this is a must listen, outstanding vocals and, just hear those solos. And it's like, I agree with, most of that because, man, it's like the piano work is excellent. And man, some of those vocals in the solo part of the show are just excellent. Like, man, I wish he would have kept that tone, later on. Some part of me prefers that voice over some other ones, but it's just a really good voice. Like if I were to take all the technical things out and just look at that voice on its own merit, I think his voice on this tour leg, like his natural voice, is excellent. And normally now the next gig is Ann Arbor, so we're going to my state. So
here comes the sentiment.
Here comes the sentimental value. And you know where this is going to lead? This is going to lead to me actually passing the torch to the Elton Bootlegs because I think he really wants to talk about this show. So go ahead, Elton Bootlegs.
I do. This is a show that when I first listened to it, I sort of got to the end and went, was that it? Not in a disappointed way. I didn't feel much listening to it the first time. Maybe because the quality isn't so good. And it's not as easy a listen as some other gigs. However, I went back to it and I gave it another couple of listens. And that's when I really began to appreciate this show. The one thing that I can remember from the first listening was that I noticed that later on in the set, there were some songs in particular where his voice he sounded very rough. And I'm going, oh. But in this gig, it's only for a couple of songs, and then it recovers, and he sounds fine at the end. Candle, admittedly, there are some tired. He does sound a slight bit tired on it, but I can forgive him. It's the end of the long gig. This gig for me is going to be put into the mid-A category. I'm going to put this below Dallas, but it will go above Woodlands. There are some excellent performances on this show. Again, we talk about the ballad section. To be fair, when we talk about certain sections of shows, I actually think that the first half an hour, 40 minutes of all these 93, 94, 95 gigs, they'd be all-star if you just took them as isolations. And again, this is no exception. Can you imagine that? It's like, okay, so I'm going to take sections of this, so that'd be an all-star.
Yeah.
Imagine if we just cut the second half out and just had the
But
first
that's,
part.
that's nothing against the second half of the show. It's just that when you put everything together, you have to come to a conclusion in the end. But yeah, this gig, I would put it in the mid-A category. This is where Pilot's beginning to get going for me now, and it will, in the next week, it becomes, you're getting some real elite versions of it. Is there anything else from this gig? I'm trying to rack my brain here. I'll mention a song that I've not mentioned yet, The One. I actually really like this version.
Mm-hmm.
Elton's really into it. Now, and I'll also will admit, the last song, it's not my favourite song, I'll be honest. If it's one of Elton's hits that I don't like, it'd be that. It's just a song that makes me feel very depressed.
That makes sense, yeah.
That's why I don't really like listening to it. So that's why the only time I'll tend to listen to it is if I'm listening to a gig and I have to listen to it, or I have to listen to the album version just to remind myself of the intricacies of it, which isn't pleasant, but oh well. Elton John fan admits he doesn't like song.
Oh, you're cancelled! You're cancelled! I hate you! Fuck you!
You can say the Scottish. You say the Scottish.
Scottish.
Scottish guy. I can say.
You're cancelled. You're cancelled. Ah!
I'm so good with my accents, aren't I?
Yeah. Wait till we go to Birmingham. All right, I'm from Birmingham. I love the way you said lackadaisical before TSS. It was wonderful. I'm from Dudley. To all the people from Birmingham that listen to this, I love you all very much. Your accent is fantastic.
We love it.
Now he doesn't. Go ahead.
What?
That was so
All
much
right. So you said it was like the mid-A for you.
Mid-A, above Woodlands, just below Dallas.
Okay.
Go ahead, TSS.
I'm gonna put this in high A, above Dallas. The reason why is we're starting to get we're like Elton Bootleg said, Pilot is better on this show. Leave On is better than the show. Indian Sunset is better on this show. The weirdest part is, the roughness patch is a lot less than it was in Dallas, and the recovery is more pronounced. But I will say that this is where we start to really see Elton like open up and start to be experimental with the songs with the longer improvs and stuff like that. And with that, it's an improvement musically and vocally in the second half and on those specific songs. Because while Dallas's Leave On is pretty good, Ann Arbor's is better. And even though the quality is not as good, I would still rank it higher than Dallas here. For me, on my personal list, it's on the top A.
All right.
Maybe I'm too harsh.
Now that sounds like something people would say to me, but
I've gone to the point where I'm just too harsh about things. I feel like I'm TSS now. At times.
It's like
that's made in a nice way, by the way, because I know how high your standards are.
Yes.
He's the English version of TSS Killer. So
that's a big compliment.
It's like we can go down the list.
Hey, we finally get to talk about the show, and then talk about this and then the next one, and I'm really happy about it. So,
all right,
here we go.
So go ahead, Greg. Go ahead, Greg.
All right.
This is where he pulls out an all-star from nowhere.
All right, so Ann Arbor, what do you think?
What do I think? First of all, I am so glad that on this tour, that Elton John, 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 that El we have Michigan shows.
Oh yeah.
That's right. We have 2 of them. We have this one from Ann Arbor and the next night in East Lansing. So I am so glad that my state is being featured on this tour. Like, you have no idea how happy I am to have shows from Michigan. I swear, the state's being put on the map for these Elton shows, and I love it. But on to more important matters. So the gig itself, I'm not going to suck the gig's cock that much, but I'm trying. So I have to be somewhat fair here. The quality is a little, it isn't the greatest listening experience, to be honest. But I will say that there's a great atmosphere at this show. The crowd's into it, and they're with Elton the whole time, and Elton's like really enthusiastic through the show, and he's thanking the crew. So yeah, the atmosphere is great. I'll give it that. I'll start off with that. The solos on this show. Again, they are a step up from previous shows, and this is where I think musically, you start to hear a lot of elements, especially on the Woodland show, and you hear more on the Dallas show. But I think this Michigan show we have, the Ann Arbor show, it's one of those things where there's such a big leap musically from previous shows that this might be the start of that kind of like that mid-tour groove that a musician would get. Like, he finally found, some people would say like, oh, he found his voice, or something like, oh, he found himself. Well, here I think this is the gig that we have on recording where Elton truly found those piano chops and pushed them into uncharted territory, because it is a massive step up compared to previous shows. The solo on I Don't Wanna is just, it just builds up. It gets better and better as it goes on. I didn't want the solo to end. And it's one of those things where, when you hear solos on songs, and we'll take specifically I Don't Want to Go On With You Like That. I know TSS Killer, that's one of your all-time favorite songs.
Yes.
That Elton's done in the live environment. And I know you love those solos.
Yes.
And it's like, to me, this is one of those versions where I was actually mad that the solo wasn't longer, because that solo is so unique and it builds up, it gets more intense. It's like, I wanted it to keep going. Like, I thought, like, you have something here, keep going. And then song ends. I'm like, oh, you fucking idiot. But shut up. But
I'd love for you to say that to his face.
No. Never mind.
As Greg's at the gig, he finishes, get back on that fucking piano now!
Sometimes if you like something, you tend to go a little overboard. But musically, this is a couple steps up from the Texas shows, and I love it. There's some the vocals on the solo section. Oh, the one is among the best versions from these Ray Cooper performances. The Where to Now St. Peter performance, that's one of the best on this tour leg. He adds like little flourishes to the vocal. The piano is played with more pep. Like, you can tell he's having a great night. Like he is truly in the zone. The only real minus to this gig I can really think of that's like really, really prominent is during the Ray Cooper section, he does go overboard on some stuff, and he does end up sounding a little rough in places. And some of the overdrive, even though I don't mind it that much, he's really pushing his voice by Crocodile Rock and Benny. But and then Pinball Wizard's got that really, really overdriven approach. But surprisingly, Candle isn't compromised vocally too badly. So, I mean, I'll give him a pass. But the funny thing about this show is some performances towards the end sound harsh vocally, but the recovery time is different and more consistent in places during the Ray Cooper section, which is, it's kind of strange, but funny how things work. For me personally, because Elton Bootlegs, you have it at mid A.
Mid A, yeah.
But if you want to put it above Dallas, I'm more than happy for you to do so.
And then TSS, you have it at high A, right?
Yes.
Because as I said to you guys, my margins for them gigs are marginal. Well, Woodlands is a slight bit lower, but between Dallas and Ann Arbor, it's not much of a difference. So if you want to put it above Dallas, I'm more than happy for you to do so.
The thing is, I think it does go above Dallas just because it's musically just on a different level, and I think it's top A. Not just above Dallas, but
I agree.
The topmost A gig. Like this is the king of A's. Like
I agree with that.
If the vocal was cleaner and you didn't have some of that stuff going on in a couple songs, this would have gone without hesitation into S, without like any sort of thing. But musically, it's an excellent show. Like, and this is really, I think, the gig that we have on tape where it truly starts the top class work with the piano playing, specifically the solo sections. So that's my take on Ann Arbor. So I didn't suck the gig's dick that much, but I had to do some sucking.
Greg.
So
there's one more.
There's one more. So I'll begin this one.
Sure.
I'll begin this one because it's a Michigan show, and I just got to put myself out there. East Lansing. We have, I had to use 2 different copies to complete it, but you got to do what you got to do to make things work, and I think it worked out okay because we can listen to this properly now. And the thing is, I am looking forward to the discussion for this one specifically because I had to re-listen to the show, and I was really zeroing in on certain performances that I wanted to double check some things. And it's just, there was something about this show that just had me keep coming back to it. Now, and I don't really get that feeling too often on tour legs. Usually you get the one show or the 1 or 2 shows that it draws you in and you want to keep listening to it on repeated listens a lot. This is one of those instances where this show does that because the musicianship and the chemistry between Ray and Elton, fantastic. Like, Ann Arbor was a really, really good starting point, and you can tell there's a lot of greatness on that show. And I knew there was going to be some greatness on the next show, and thankfully it was in Michigan. For me, this show is one of the most consistent and highly sought after listening experiences that I had personally listening to this, because even though the quality isn't exactly the greatest, I think the show is just so good that you can kind of forgive the quality. Kind of forgive the quality. And there's throwbacks on this show, like Skyline Pigeon. We haven't really
talked about
it that much, but man, what a freaking phenomenal version. I mean, he sings it like a combination of 79, which is a great thing, and he sings it kind of like some of the phrasing kind of foreshadows the 99 versions, but you have that 93 voice kind of splitting the world. So you got 3 different eras being represented, and I thought that was phenomenal, actually. I don't know if Elton was intended to do that, but it happened. And it was fantastic. I Don't Want to Go On is what has one of the most ambitious solos that you'll ever hear from him. Definitely one of my favorite solos from him. In the solo environment. Weirton St. Peter is excellent still. The North is one of the best for the Elton Bootlegs. I know he mentioned earlier that he's not the biggest fan of the last song,
Not particularly.
but you gotta give credit to this version because it's on point. Like the delivery is excellent and it's delicate. It does its job. You know, it's excellent. Couple more things I'll mention. The Ray Cooper section, holy shit, goldness. There's goldness, there's greatness. Tonight still has like the time machine thing going on where he puts the 80s vocals in places again. You know, Levon is excellent too. Man, he's having fun. He's belting out. He's totally into the zone. And he still kind of has that 80s power thing going on, and it's great. I think I'm going to kill myself. It can't hold a candle to the early tour versions, but this is one of the better ones from this stretch. I'll give it that. Daniel is fantastic. There's just... The vocals are more consistent on the show with less roughness, and the dips aren't as prominent, and even the end songs. You know, when you get to, you know, the ones with all the vocal overdrive, the roughness is not as prominent, and Candle still has, you know, a pretty clean tone considering. So I'm like, man. So I am so open to this, and I'm looking forward to the discussion, but I truly think that even though Elton's voice is obviously not at first Fort Lauderdale level, I will still point to that show as being the best vocal shape that he has on this tour. Like, I say that this gig has him in good enough voice with fantastic deliveries. The musicianship and chemistry is on point. The only other thing I can think, the only real flub is slight flub in Crazy Water for the piano. That's really the only major issue I can think of. But everything else is just so high and just so great. And I know it's going to sound like I'm kind of, you know, sucking this gig's dick a little bit. But I truly believe this. And this is one of the few times I truly mean this. I honestly think East Lansing gets a shot at going into the lower end of All Stars. I truly think I truly believe in this show, and I've never felt that way on any other show on this tour. And it's like, it's okay. I want the discussions, but there's something about this show that is just, I don't know. Maybe it's biased, but feel free. But you know what I mean. Feel free. Who wants to go first?
I'll go next.
Go ahead.
It's not an all-star show. However, it is worthy of mid-S. See, the problem is I'm teetering between like this and between if it goes above second Fort Lauderdale or below it. I'll still say below it. However, though, I will make this one statement. The I Don't Want to Hear is the best version on this tour. Let me tell you why. First of all, this is the first time since Princess Trust where Elton successfully hits the F4 on Feeding Me Lines. The last time he attempted it was 10-7-89 MSG, and that way he hits the F4 flat and then drops down. This is the first time where he hits Feeding Me Lines on the F4, and the solo is amazing. And also, this crowd is the best crowd on the entire tour. They're clapping along in unison with timing, and it's just a great crowd atmosphere, and Elton is in fantastic voice. So, bam, mid-S, but still below Fort Lauderdale for me.
Okay, so it'll be below the first Fort Lauderdale?
No, it'll be below... No. It'll be below the second Fort Lauderdale in my list.
Okay, I see. So
yes.
It's above. Okay,
but it's still definitely S tier show. Elton and Ray are on fire on this, and like I said, the I Don't Want is the best one on this leg.
Elton bootlegs. What are your thoughts on this second Michigan show?
I really like this show. And I also have this in the S tier. So, yeah. No, this is a really, really strong show. The voice is great. The Ray section is really good. And this reminds me of Fort Lauderdale. It is stunning. I also love the photo you used for this gig, Greg. I mean, Elton looks, well, he looks a bit old.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Okay. Let me explain something here. Yes, I used... How am I supposed to explain this without embarrassing myself too badly?
To be fair,
it was mislabeled.
It was mislabeled.
It was mislabeled as 93, and then I don't know who was in charge of, the website where I got this, but I later checked after it was uploaded on YouTube, and they corrected it to 99. I'm like, what are you doing? And then of course, comps are like, Elton looks pretty fat for 93.
You want to know why? Because the hair, the tuft of hair on his forehead looks very similar.
So, I do apologize for that photo, but you gotta admit that's a great photo of him. So maybe I'll reuse it for a 99 show.
Yes.
But I apologize for that photo.
All right, Elton Bootlegs, go ahead.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway. So, nice photo. Anyway, it'll probably be used again somewhere.
Well, it is a good photo.
Well, you'll be uploading another 99 show, and I'll say, "Hey, Greg, you've used the same photo again." And you're like, "Yeah, I don't care."
Because I used it in
Not
the
like
right
the old
era.
days. Not like the old days where I used to crab you, and you'd be like, "Oh, well, I'll do something different each time."
Yeah.
But no, performance-wise, excellent gig. I only have praise to give to it. I just think that the first Fort Lauderdale and the last Fort Lauderdale just have that edge for me. But the piano playing now is we're getting somewhere. Pilot now. Here we go now. This is terrific.
Yeah, that's one of the definitive versions. From one of the best post surgery.
The thing is, I remember when I first got into Elton, and I listened to versions of Pilot. And I listened to, you listen to Sydney, because it's a famous one. You listen to some of the 79 ones, and you listen to these 93 ones, and they're amazing. And then I was listening to other versions of the song, but this was a few years ago. I'd not been near the song for a bit, and I started listening to a few, and I was like, it's not as good as I remember it. And then I listened to some of these, and I'm like, that's what I really love about the song. So, mid-S, above the second show, Fort Lauderdale, and underneath the other two. A really good show.
Man,
and Greg wants to put in the All-Star. But Greg.
I just thought, I lose. But I just thought that, it was just so musically good. I thought it gave it that edge, but I guess it didn't work out the way I intended.
Oh, well.
Oh, well. But, I will say this. TSS Killer. I love 93, and you can start New Haven.
Absolutely. Okay. So New Haven continues the very high quality of a mix of, Elton's voice and the music as well. The music is really good on the show. So I'm going to say this right now. It still belongs in the S category, but for me, it's bottom S. There's some anomalies on the show that, especially towards the Ray Cooper stuff, where it's not as refined. I don't know. Maybe there might have been some oddities about the show, but it's still, but the crowd are still into it, and Elton is in still pretty decent voice. It's still in very good voice. But for me, it's still maybe one step lower than East Lansing, but it still is a great show. He actually does really daring phrasing on Leave On. He actually hits multiple G's in the choruses, and they're on top. Like the B flats are on top, and the outro is really good too. And then I Don't Want is still excellent. Like I said, the solo is still very good. You hear the crowd really getting into it. And especially when you watch the video, because this is one of the rare times we actually did. This is the only video of the American tour that we have. It still is very, very nice to watch. And very amusing to see Elton in a freaking white collar shirt, Yeah,
so formal.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like he's wearing like flashy suits or anything. He's just coming out. He's just coming out in like a freaking, I don't know, like one of those. He looks like he came out of a dress rehearsal. And he did, and still, I would say that this show is still very excellent, and it still is better than anything in the A category. So this goes in the bottom of S, and it's still worth the listen even now. So that's my review on that.
I always think some of the costumes from this tour almost resemble like the later '86 stuff, where not the really wacky stuff, but he wears like the Tina Turner wigs and he wears like the black outfits.
Yeah,
kind of like that, but more toned down.
Yes.
That's how I love the costumes in this tour. They're very, very basic, but it fits really well. Plus, I don't think at this point in his career he needed anything like that.
Yeah, because technically this is a stripped down tour.
Elton John emerges naked. Oh my god!
Yeah, imagine that headline: Elton John stripped. I'm like, oh dear. That's a good tagline for a tour.
And here's and then it gets worse. And here's Ray
Well,
Cooper
I mean,
with the
would you take this or late '98 Elton in the basketball shorts?
Oh,
like,
God.
Something for a TierMaker, right?
What legs he has.
What about the encores in like '86 where he came out in shorts? And the Aussie rehearsals where he's wearing very short shorts.
Yeah, he's wearing a Mets cap and stuff.
Yeah, it's like I think that it's like man, it's like God, he sneezes, surprises out. But yeah, continue.
Probably still vibes with Black Cat. Anyway, continue, Elton.
Oh,
is it my turn?
No, it says continue.
Oh, I was done. I already said. I said no. I said no. I finished my piece, and I said it was the lowest of S's.
I'm sorry. Just thinking about Elton's shorts kind of threw me off kilter a bit. But Elton bootlegs. I'll let you go.
Okay, so before I talk about this gig, we must talk about something about this venue and about this city. So the last time Elton performed here was in 1989. And it happened to be one of the worst shows he had ever done in his live career. As, long story short, I remember getting the footage for this years ago, watching it, and messaging Greg saying, "Hey Greg, you must watch this. Elton's so bored he's looking at his watch." And he fucks off after sad songs. He literally hour and a half into the gig, he just gets up and he's off. And that's the end of the tour. Gone. Wow. Anyway, we're back here 4 years later, and what a difference this is. He's not looking at his watch, and he's having the time of his life. Singing well, playing unbelievably well. Ray Cooper has a great night as well. This is a fantastic show. But I do agree with TSS. I would have it at the lower end of S. It's not quite an A show, but again, it's not quite as good as the others. In terms of performances, Pilot is fantastic once again. Crazy Water I really enjoy from this gig, especially the footage as well. That's always a great thing to watch. The ballad stuff is great again. I mean, you can just put that on repeat, can't you? The ballad stuff, tick. The one thing I will say is that we do have, again, another one of those moments where Tonight has him completely forgetting the arrangement. And you're listening to it and you're thinking, come on, keep going. Oh, no, he's forgotten where he is. Oh, it's almost you can hear him make and him go, oh, shit, what do I do next? And he just about saves it from being a car crash. But yeah, another really solid gig from this tour. It's like when you're trying to draw together a list of shows for people to listen to, this will go on the list. Definite low S.
Yeah, for me, this is a gig where it has some of my earliest memories from the late 93 shows come from this specific tour because of the video. And I also do believe there's footage, amateur footage from the Woodland show but it doesn't. I mean, I know it exists because I've seen it, but it doesn't pop up nearly as often.
Right.
But
Oh, right.
but New Haven is like kind of like the common '93 show that you'll see all over YouTube, and that in the second Fort Lauderdale and Sun City. But yeah, this New Haven show, there's a lot to like about it. Yeah, definitely agree with the Elton bootlegs in the sense that this is a complete 180 from the '89 show. Well, yeah, I really like this show. One thing I find unique about it is, Elton's tone still sounds really good, but it may be the recording quality maybe has something to do with it. But
well, yeah,
but because it's a very echoey sort of a
it's recorded from it's recorded from the upper deck. That's
it has that sort of that
resonance,
that cavernous quality, a lot of reverb in it. But what I'm noticing on this show is Elton's vocal shape is still very strong, and the singing is still at a high level. But some of the cadences and the phrasing and the tonal shifts are a little bit different here compared to some earlier shows, because I hear a lot of emphasis more on a lot of power and like belting, and he's like attacking the songs with, it kind of comes off like he's super confident and more assertive. And I'm not saying he doesn't have delicate and soft tone, but I just noticed it where, like, I think he was honestly kind of pushing himself a little harder than he would normally do, because I think he was trying to make up for what happened in '89. Because I recall, going a little off topic, during the one tour when he played in Hartford in '92, after the opening song "Don't Let the Sun," he apologizes for being so fucked up in a mess for Hartford '89, the opening night of the previous tour. So I think Elton may had some of that sentiment still in him for this particular show, because I notice he's like super confident and he's given extra effort on songs, and is playing too. So yeah, I mean, the one sore spot in this whole 2.5 hour show is the Tonight issue, but apart from that, this is just, again, it's very consistently strong and very powerful deliveries, rock solid tone, and and even the more up-tempo rocker songs during the Ray Cooper section sound really good and energetic. And really, for me, I would put this, in the S tier, but I really honestly don't think it belongs at bottom S. I actually think it's, I would agree low S, but I'm kind of thinking about it, and I'm like, I think it's better in some aspects than the second Fort Lauderdale show, because the tone, okay, it's not nearly as pristine and sweet as right in the Fort Lauderdale stuff. I agree with that. But man, it's just musically much better, much more defined. There's more energy, and just more it's like Elton's got his foot on the gas more at this show, and he's like totally in the zone. So I honestly think it's a step above the second Fort Lauderdale show, but not nearly as good as East Lansing and the last Fort Lauderdale. So I think it's actually a little bit higher, I think, than the second Fort Lauderdale 10-1, because I really honestly think it's just musically better, and the energy levels better, and the atmosphere's better. So I think it's overall a little bit better than the second night. That's just me personally.
Okay.
But yeah, because I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, I really think it's good enough to kind of go above that. But do you see it being a little higher or lower? Because I honestly think it's a little better than the second Fort Lauderdale. Because I'm looking at those solos, I'm looking at the music and the chemistry. It's just so good.
If it went above it without my say so, I wouldn't look at it and go, "Why the hell has that happened?" If you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't question it as much as if you say for example, you took, I don't know, you took Charlotte 84 and you put it above Wembley 84. Then that's when you're saying, what the freaking hell are you doing?
Yeah, but for me, it's still. I mean, even with the faults of the second Fort Lauderdale, the vocal. I mean, the vocal quality, even though it's not as good, at least the early vocals are still there. I mean, it's very difficult. It's very difficult because it's like it's a complete. I mean, the deliveries are different. Than on the Fort Lauderdale show.
Oh yeah, I agree. There are differences. But how about musically? How about those solos?
Well, musically is better. Yeah, but I mean, Tonight has a pretty good fuck up.
Yeah, but there's fuck ups on the Fort Lauderdale one too. I mean, obviously not as bad. As that. I will agree with that. But it's real
my
weird.
personal. I mean, I'm fine with putting it there for yours, but still on mine, it's still bottom out.
Okay. Elton Bootlegs, your personal one. Would you put it above or below second Fort Lauderdale?
Below.
Okay. Oh fuck.
Hey,
Okay.
Hey, TSS. Do you
Okay.
know what that
Okay.
means?
All right. Okay. Oh, come on! I thought I had it this time. I was so close. Music.
To be fair, hey Greg, it's just a gnat's testicle. That's all.
God damn it! Seriously. Okay. I moved
We
it
love
back.
you, Greg.
I'm trying here. Okay, I moved it back. Okay, it's bottom S. I'm like,
Okay.
God damn it! I thought I could have gotten it.
Well, and now for something completely different.
All right, I'll start. All right, I'll start this one off. Okay, Amherst. This is not New Haven by any means. This is not any of the Fort Lauderdales. Nowhere close to East Lansing. And Ann Arbor is better. And those Texas shows, stand above this one. Because for me, Amherst, it's not an off night, but it is a step or two below these shows. Because sometime between the New Haven show and this one, Elton caught some sort of a sickness, which is not acknowledged on this show, but it's acknowledged at Providence, where he mentions he's not feeling well towards the end of the night, and he says he was able to stay on stage because of the crowd and support. But the reason why, it's going to be ranked where it is the voice is noticeably rougher. Like, this isn't one of those things where he starts off fantastic and kind of roughens up on one song and then kind of stays consistent. No, there is, even on the solo songs at the first section, there is a noticeable change in the tone. Normally he would have a nice, kind of like a pure tone, a very nice clear tone.
Yeah.
It'd be smooth and glidey, but here it sounds like he's singing with speed bumps, like hitting speed bumps along the way. And yeah, and it's like the tape starts, a little late, so we don't even get the first few songs, but it starts off with Need You to Turn To. And right from the start there, it's not as smooth as any of the other versions that we have. And Talking All Soldiers is still a great version, but yeah, I can find better. And he's, kind of backing off some stuff. I don't want to, it's rougher than you would expect vocally, but man, having the voice give out doesn't exactly help matters.
No.
But I still would say that it's worth a listen because the solo is definitely still
Fantastic.
first class. So yeah, so he does make up for that. Just the ballad songs and the songs that would normally have really smooth phrasing, it's a little more choppy. It's not, the smooth singing you used to be, hearing from this. So and to put that in perspective, it's not like he sounds terrible or he's not even shot. It's just it's not to the level you'd expect from '93 Elton at this point, in his career. It's below average for his vocals for the summer. Now it's not bad by any means, but it's not up to par with what we're used to hearing. And musically it's still great, and he still pulls off great solos. The energy's still there, but even the energy is it's not completely gone or anything, and there's still energy, but it's a little lackadaisical compared to I had to throw that in there just for you, Elton Bootlegs. I know you're waiting for it, but it's like you're kind of missing a little bit of the extra spice to some of these performances, because I don't totally blame it on Elton because he's not feeling well, but it is really noticeable. Pilot, I like the gutsy singing, and there's some great moments, but again, it's just something's missing from some of these performances where you don't get that extra cylinder in the engine. You don't get the extra spice. And it's not so much that there's bad playing or anything. It's just, there's better. We've heard better. We know, there's better. And on its own, it's still a pretty good show. But compared to some of these other ones, to me, it just doesn't quite cut the mustard. So
yeah,
Amherst for me, weakest show on the American leg. It's going to bottom A, below Woodlands. I'm sorry, but that's how I feel. TSS Killer.
I would disagree with that. Because so let's first of all let's acknowledge that whenever Elton goes to Amherst, it's something weird happens. Like 97 is the weakest one on the American leg on the 97. Because of the cold and everything. Is kind of funny. It's like 4 years later, he gets the same thing. So Amherst is very interesting because even though vocally it is one of the weakest shows, for me personally, and this is actually sad, I mean, musically it's better than the Woodlands. Also, the version of Leave On from Amherst is actually better than the Woodlands because he actually doesn't do a lot of conservative phrasing. He actually hits the New York Times on the pre-choruses, which he doesn't do on the Woodlands.
I don't understand that. It's like
even when his voice is rough. I mean, you could definitely hear it when you get to like Benny and Pinball, but it's nowhere near like 95 levels of vocal disintegration and stuff like that. I mean, he's not in the best vocal shape, but damn, the piano work on like Pilot and Crazy Water, the piano work is still there. So at least he's giving a great effort on the instrumental side. But I do agree that it goes in the lower part of A, but I still would put it above the Woodlands only because of the music and the better version of Leave On. And and the piano isn't fucked, so.
Fair enough. Elton Bootlegs.
Yes.
Pretty much what you guys have said. I'd have it at the lower end of A. I'll be a little bit positive as well. I think his voice gets slightly better in the middle part of the show.
I agree.
Earlier on, it's sort of rougher. It makes me wonder how the first few songs would sound, and maybe that he's warming himself up basically as the show goes on. I know how it is. Not that I sing professionally, but when you sing with a cold and you try and even speak, it is unpleasant. Mm-hmm. Depends how bad it is usually, but if it sounds a pretty rough one here. His piano playing is excellent. That is something that will always stand him in good stead. Ray Cooper has a very punchy evening as well. He's obviously having to play his parts as well, especially with Elton's cold. No, this is it's one of the weaker shows we're going to listen to throughout this era. But that's not to say it's the worst thing in the world, because there are far worse shows from other tours that we're going to get to it in the future, and I'm going to cry when we have to listen to them.
Well, just think about it. A weak show from this tour leg is still being put into A. So that's the standard.
I want to also interject one thing, and there's one thing I forgot to say about the show, and that is there is a very weird moment in Pilot where Elton is playing, Elton and Ray are like going off, and they're playing like very like up-tempo rocky part of the solo, and all of a sudden Elton just fucking stops, like fucking completely goes to like halftime and goes back to like the kind of like the ballad. And it catches Ray off completely. He's still like banging the tambourine like double time, and then freaking Elton just fucking stops and just completely goes into the end section where it's like a slower section, and it fucks off fucks up the timing.
It's like,
so that's one of the notable like mistakes of this show, but it's still kind of funny to listen to it, because you hear like Ray still banging the tambourine a double time, like 2 or 3 measures after Elton goes back to the ballad section.
Well, I mean, hence the term progressive rock. I mean, it's one of those things where, hey, you try things out, you try it out on stage, and some of the things may not go according to plan, but they tried. So
yeah, true. So anyway, Elton Bootlegs. So you would say. But so Elton Bootlegs, what would you say, like, this will be towards the bottom of the A, but would this be the lowest ranking of A for you, or would it something else be a little bit higher than that as so far?
Personally for me, I'd probably put this below Woodlands. It's mainly for the voice.
Okay, fair enough.
Mainly for the voice.
All right, so I'm slightly redeemed. I feel slightly better, because I thought I was going to have a third you lose moment, but
that's fine.
All right.
I understand, but for me, it's like the fact of the matter is, how can Levon when he has a fucking shot voice be better than the one where it's better in shape?
I don't understand that. It's like he pulls surprises. It's like, he doesn't sound quite as good vocally, but the delivery's better. I can't.
Yeah, the delivery is better.
I can't dispute that.
Yeah, it's like you hear it. Wow. So one more show on this freaking on this freaking leg.
All right, Elton Bootlegs.
Providence.
Providence, you're up.
Okay. Well, considering he's got a cold, this is way better than the previous night, and I don't know why. Because you'd assume that the night before would be a precursor to what you're going to hear on this gig, and it's not. Like the first couple of songs, maybe he uses them to warm up, but once he's warmed up, he's great. Especially as you get towards the second half of the show as well. Some of my favourite performances come from this show. Tonight's fantastic. Indian Sunset, wow, what a performance that is. Pilot is fantastic. Don't Let the Sun is great. Benny is wonderful at this gig in particular. I also love Candle as well. Where do I rank this? I ummed and ahed about where to put this show. I think I know why. I ummed and ahed about this show.
Right.
About where to put this. And I would stick this show in the S category. Above New Haven, but underneath 10-1. That's where I would put it on my TierMaker.
So that sounds so wrong. I'm sorry, but
you disturbing individual.
I'm so sorry.
What's got you so excited?
I just can't hide it. I know. It's like, God forbid. So I'll go next on this one, because this is another show that I feel very, very strongly about. you know, again, it's like the East Lansing show. For Providence, the easy answer is yes. Despite not feeling well, which Elton would acknowledge, towards the end there, his voice is actually in better shape than the Amherst show. So the show he acknowledges that he's not feeling well, he's in better voice. Very weird. And also, I'm glad that the quality is actually quite nice, considering everything. It's not A+, but it's reasonably good, and you can, follow along with it pretty well. And I consider it one of the must-listens from the tour leg. For me, this is musically the best show on the entire tour. We've been working through these great solos. We've been working through the arrangements, preparing for stuff. And 10/16, the East Lansing show, is one of those shows where you can just hear that music, that musicianship and energy in full force, kind of like at the starting point, with that in Ann Arbor. Here, it's like, wow, it's even better than that. And just listen to stuff like Crazy Water, where Elton's his voice is surprisingly very good, considering the acknowledgement of him not feeling well. He sustains a lot of stuff very nicely. The musicianship and the chemistry between Ray and Elton are bang on. The Take Me to the Pilot is one of the best versions post surgery. Just, it's such a highlight. So much great playing. Highly creative. I didn't want it to stop. TSS Killer's favorite song has, amazing solo work on it too. And Elton's tone does sound a little bit better than Amherst. It's a little cleaner sounding, a little more smooth, although he does still kind of cut off some phrases here and there, especially early on, but it's not nearly as noticeable as Amherst. I just think these deliveries of songs are just phenomenal, considering everything. And this is the second to last show that we have from the American leg, because he would do one more after Portland, and then tour leg ends and off to Sun City. For me, the musicianship is just so rock solid, so high level. Best musicianship, I think, for the tour leg. And Elton's voice is better than Amherst. I will concede that he doesn't sound quite as clean compared to the Fort Lauderdales and stuff, but honestly, just music. To me, the musicianship and the passion carry the show. And I do think it does belong in the S tier, but man, I'm really feeling the show. I think it's right at the same level as East Lansing, so I do think it is better than the second Fort Lauderdale. And I will say the musicianship is, right in the same tier as East Lansing. Vocals are still, strong, but I would put East Lansing a little bit overall, just a hair above. So it is really, really tough there, but I honestly think it's very, very, in the same echelon as East Lansing. And the leave-on, one more point I'll make, the leave-on is not only aggressively and confidently sung and performed with a ton of energy, but he flips the phrasing around for this one, because on this tour, Elton would sing conservative phrasing on Pauper to a Pawn, and then New York Time would still be sung with the original phrasing. Here, Pauper to a Pawn is nailed like Prime Live, but New York Time on the first chorus is changed. So, let's mix the phrasing up and confuse the hell out of me. But, I just love the show. He is. It's like, God damn it. So, Yeah,
Makes you wonder, doesn't it, with artists? They're like, should we hit a certain note to just troll bootleggers?
Just to piss me off and piss you off and everything. It's crazy. But yeah, I think Providence is definitely one of the best shows on this entire run. I'll put it just a teensy-weensy little fly testicle below East Lansing. So just because he does sound a little rougher here compared to East Lansing, but the musicianship is just, it's so good. TSS Killer, where would you put Providence?
So yeah, what a difference a week makes. So I went and I listened to Providence, again, over the week, and the musicianship here is like top notch. I want to say like the like on the pilot, Indian Sunset has fantastic phrasing, which, like I said, now we're getting into the category of now it's sounding like it does in '94 in terms of the way that stuff is phrased, especially towards like the outro. But the chemistry between Elton and Ray is even better than it was here on in New Haven. Even though the voice is still a bit rough, it still is a 180 from Amherst, and this is a must-listen show. And also, the quality is like DAT tape. It is absolutely, you could hear all of the intricacies of the piano, the crowd, and Ray, and the percussion and the vibraphone. And it does go below East Lansing, but not by much. But on a musical scale, this is better than East Lansing. But in terms of like overall package, it's just slightly lower. So it belongs in S, just above New Haven.
Yeah, and it's like, it's just so, I know it's not out of the question for Elton's tour legs and stuff, but man, it's like the later shows, like you find this like gem of a later show being like so good like this, I know it's happened with the 85-86 UK tour leg, we have, Last Belfast and stuff, but it's like, I'm just so happy we just got such an amazing show that late into the tour, like 1 gig away from the final gig of the tour leg, and the quality is very reasonably good. So
yes.
I think we hit a home run with this one.
Exactly.
I nearly started humming Supper's Ready then. 666. Oh no.
666.
I listened to one of them the other day and it was questionable. 10-15-86. Oh, funnily enough, when we discussed the next TierMaker, Genesis had the exact same setup. So they had 2 nights. They had 3 nights recorded actually, but the first 2 nights were exact same setup as they were for Elton. So 10-10 and 10-14 were like the more synthy sounding, and then the 10-15 and 10-11 would be more natural.
Yeah.
Fun fact.
Sun City.
So, let me roll the dice here for a second. I'll start this one.
Sure.
Okay, Sun City. One of the most popular Elton shows from this era, probably the show people would go to, because it's, it commonly circulates. It's all over YouTube. And,
great video.
And we got the video and everything. So, yeah, it's one of the most accessible shows from Elton's Ray Cooper runs in the 90s. For me, it's like, and it's not all Elton's fault. Actually, most of this isn't even his fault. But to me and this show, it's not gelling, really, all that well compared to the other ones. Even Amherst with the, voice, not being in the best shape and everything, there was still, there's still, great musical moments and everything. And I wasn't really like, not like I was overly extremely enthusiastic about it, but like I didn't listen to the end of it and feel like, oh, well, that was a chore, or, I was disappointed. I thought it was, okay, it is what it is. The Sun City one, to me, I mean, I mentioned earlier that I personally thought that Amherst was the weakest show, from the North American leg. And that's why I ranked it the way I did. And that's why when you look at our tier makers, it's on the lower end of A. What I was phrasing differently was, even though I think Amherst is the weakest show on North America, I wasn't talking the whole tour. I think, and this might be controversial, because I want to hear your thoughts on this, both of you. I don't think Sun City even measures up to the weaker American shows, and I'm putting in Amherst and Woodlands and all these shows with either vocal consistency issues or musical flubs and stuff, because while Sun City has its moments, and there are some great performances, especially during the early portions of the show, the solo section, and you still have Elton's great tone and vocal control. It's one of these things where you got the tech issues. Okay, you got insects flying around, hitting Elton, flying in his mouth. You have the sound issues. You have the high wind. And all of this is just, impacting the show in varying ways. And it gets to the point where songs are cut out of the set or cut down. So we're missing about half hour worth of songs just because of technical issues, just because of the weather, just because of things going on. Like the wrong venue was selected for a show like this. And the show we have available is the last night of the whole 93 stuff. We don't have the first night, but we have the last night. And Elton did 4 shows in Sun City. So it'd be really interesting to hear how those other nights went down. But yeah, me and this show, I'm just not feeling it the way I would normally feel for an Elton solo show or a Ray Cooper show. It's just, his voice is good, but I've heard better. There's some great deliveries on songs, but I've heard better. Musicianship, there's some tight playing. There's some good moments, but man, I can put on a large amount of these other 93 shows for better stuff. And I don't know. It's just, Elton does maintain a professional attitude. I give him a ton of credit for, still staying on the stage and, doing the best he can under those circumstances. But it's just, I don't know. I'm not getting the best vibes from the show for a large amount of reasons. And it's not clicking with me. Maybe you guys have a better outlook on it than me, and I want to hear your viewpoints, but I'm just not really a fan of this one in comparison to the other ones. On its own, it's okay, it's fine, good, some good stuff, but I don't know. It's just, this isn't the show for me. But I'm not blaming Elton completely for it. So, controversial. I don't think it's good as Woodlands or Amherst. And I want to throw Sun City at top B. Because I'm not feeling it really for this one. I might be a bit harsh, and if I am, just please let me know and discuss this. But I'm just not vibing with this show at all. TSS.
I agree with Greg. One of the biggest problems with this show is, I would say, is the wind. Especially after Elton finishes off Where to Now, St. Peter, when he starts the north, you see that the wind completely blows into his face, and he has to turn his head. He has to cut off notes, and he's definitely not having a great time. And you have some rain stuff going on in the latter half, and it's he cuts out songs. You can even hear. You can hear the wind through the microphone. So there's no wind. The windscreen isn't doing its job on the microphone. You see that Elton is clearly distraught and he completely loses motivation towards the latter half. And it's really sad because the I Don't Wanna is actually okay. It's actually pretty good from the show. But I would say that they chose the wrong venue. They chose, as Elton mentioned, a swimming pool. And Elton wouldn't go back to South Africa for another 15 years. And he would be playing with Ray Cooper in a solo environment again there until 2010. And I think in completely different places like Johannesburg and Cape Town and Port Elizabeth. But as far as Sun City goes, this was the last time that he ever played in Sun City. And it's no reason, and it can't be difficult to see why. Not only because of the geopolitical stuff that was going on there, but also because of the venue that it was chosen for those 4 nights, and it was complete shit. So it's something that I'll pick and choose a couple of songs, especially the early ones, like 60 and I Don't Wanna. But aside from that, like everything past like Where Now St. Peter, I wouldn't even touch with a candle. So this show easily gets a B from me on the top side.
Yeah, and it's like, and you made a great point, because if you pick out individual performances and look at it that way and not the whole gig, as a listening experience, it's like, this performance sounds really good. Oh, this is really good too. And then you start to think, oh man, the whole show must be at this level or something, but it's not. It's like, I'll be a little more forgiving in the sense that I do think that, the final songs of the solo section, the one is really, really good. Like I think the first section has most of the stuff that I would praise about the show. It's the stuff during the Ray Cooper section that really just drags this.
Yeah.
And I understand, I know the weather wasn't great, the wind is crazy, but it's like, what a shame, because it could have been a really, really, really good show. Like, because I could hear the potential early on, but just, for me, it just wasn't cutting it. Elton bootlegs.
It's a full house. We all agree. Yay! You know what that means? We win!
And I don't lose!
But this is the weakest show that we listen to. Not that it's bad, but as TSS points out, the issues that go on during this gig pull it down, unfortunately. And you get the feeling that without them, it would have been a much better show, and you may have had more songs as well. Maybe that's the reason why we don't do Crazy Water. Or maybe it was just dropped to South Africa anyway. It's a shame, really. Although you do get to see some entertaining moments throughout the show. So poor old Elton's battling the elements, and don't forget there's the flies on stage as well.
Also, want to mention, we didn't really mention about Pilot on this tour, but this is the only tour that he actually sings the first verse twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you got the slow introduction sort of a thing going on, and then
restarts the song.
Yeah, then when it picks up, then he does it again. And
Yeah,
I thought it was a good. I do like that arrangement actually, because it gives you two different takes on
flavor.
it. Yeah,
2 different flavors. Yeah,
yeah, and the first verse that's sung, without the up tempo part, almost always contains some really good vocal moments on it.
Yeah, like the majority of them in the mid-October period, you have him singing the majority of it in the 4th octave, which he doesn't really do.
Yeah, and he sounds great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just. But yeah, Elton Bullings, continue with Sun City.
That's really what I have to say about the gig. It's sort of a sad end, really, because it had the potential to be a lot better. Yeah. And this next song is called Better Off Dead, which describes this place. It's like, oh, great. Oh, God. Now, as I said, it's a shame the tour ended like this, because if we'd have ended with Providence and we didn't have this, we'd have known about these gigs. Like, I wonder how he sounds here. And then we get this.
Yeah, and it's not like he sounds bad or anything. It's
No,
it's more like frustration and the motivation kind of goes down.
I'd be the same,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I don't entirely blame him, but
I wonder how Ray Cooper reacted.
Then
snap a few more cockroaches
constantly.
Yeah.
Snapping cockroaches. Oh, God.
And snapped a few more after the gigs.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we can look at it as like sort of like a shame, like man, it ended the tour like this. But it's like, in all fairness, it wasn't a bad gig, and if you want to take Sun City out of the equation, just focus on, North America. The final recording we have is a very, very, very good show. So
Yeah.
so I mean, there's that. But yeah, it's that's what it is. And I also will say that despite the issues that are happening on stage, I do give Elton a lot of respect for, even though you can tell he's frustrated, you can tell the motivation it goes down, during the Ray Cooper stuff. He's still staying on stage. He's still obviously trying. He's still professional. It's not like he
walk on stage. Yeah.
No, he didn't pull a New Haven '89. Yeah. So he kept his cool well. So I do give him props for being professional.
Mm.
But
all right.
It is what it is. So we've reached the end of this 1993 Ray Cooper tour, and right now we have 11 shows. We have 6 in the S tier, 4 in the A tier, 1 in the B tier.
Yeah.
And I say for 11 shows, I'd say that's a pretty good average.
I'd say so
agree.
too.
Yeah. Because most of the stuff is very high quality. Elton's musicianship really blossoms on this tour leg. Having Ray there is fantastic. It's like a more mature 79. A lot of energy. And I really dig the set list. I think overall that's a good set list. Kind of, it borrows quite a few elements from, 79, because a lot of the songs, quite a few number of songs are shared. But the different songs are great. And I just love the fact that he brought back, these songs for this particular tour leg, and they got a great treatment on stage, either Elton solo or with him and Ray. So yeah, I have a lot of high praise for this tour leg. And as I said at the beginning of this program, this really sets the stage for the future Elton John and Ray Cooper 90s legs from 94, 95. And I think this is a great starting point. I do recommend this tour leg. And if you're NCF1 and hate bongos, I'm sorry, but Levon has them. So, but yeah, I have a lot of praise for this tour leg, and to me, kind of starts, like a musical, rebirth that just continues to get better and better and better through the rest of the decade. And I will not get tired of any Elton John and Ray Cooper shows from the 90s, because I think they're brilliant. And in some ways, I almost like listening to these over band stuff, probably because of the set list stuff and
more varied.
And Elton's natural voice is awesome, and you get to hear it, relatively naked. So, so yeah. So
what, are you talking about yourself there, Greg? Or
so yeah, Elton bootlegs. Any final thoughts about the 93 Ray Cooper stuff?
I love listeing to these. They're not, every so often you come back to them and you're glad that you've come back to it. Fort Lauderdale listings are always special. I mean, it's not the number one gig for me, but the third night is one that will resonate very strongly with me. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed listening to this tour and going back to it.
Yeah, and TSS Killer. Any final thoughts about 93 Ray Cooper?
Very nice. Like I said, first Fort Lauderdale for me is still, highly rank it. And then East Lansing was a surprise for me. I wasn't expecting it to be that high. And then, the Providence show, I know, and it makes great driving music too. when I'm on like American Truck Simulator, because it's really like when you have him, because then you have Elton and Ray. You just hear the intimate environment. It makes great driving music, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, my personal experience is I hate playing the wrong performances because I end up driving terribly if I listen to them. So, I try to make sure I put the right gigs into Euro Truck Simulator or American Truck Simulator, because if you put the wrong performances in, I tend to have a more difficult task of staying on the road. So I don't know if they need to buff something on that game or nerf the effectiveness of the music, but they need to do something.
Apparently, from what I've actually played, I actually played it last week, and the traffic AI is even worse than it was.
Maybe it's your driving ability on the game, Greg.
Ooh. Them be fighting words.
Well, just to let you know, I have not killed anybody on those games.
Oh, good.
Okay,
and I tend to stay on the tarmac. So there you go.
What are you in a fucking airport? Like,
well, yeah, tarmac, pavement, whatever the hell it's called.
Asphalt.
Man, whatever. Like I stay on
your ass is at fault too. So it's like...
well, look. Here's the thing. I stay on the asphalt. Okay, it's fine.
Okay, that's good.
So there you go.
All right.
Ass. Okay. So any
fault. Fault.
So fault. Okay. So
love 30.
To conclude this.
Yes.
This was a fun experience. I think a great introduction to the non-Elton band TierMakers.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a great starting point because, we got stuff like 79 and 94 and 95.
Mm-hmm.
Also have Ray and Elton, and it's great stuff. And, man, I'm so glad we covered this, and it's worth a listen.
Absolutely.
Nice.
All right. So basically, this is us signing off on this TierMaker, and so glad to do this. And I hope you guys have a nice night, day, afternoon, depending on the time zone you're in. And yeah, hopefully everybody had fun, and expect to see some great comments and some great outtakes and everything about this.
Before, I have one thing to say. Don't forget that we got the next TierMaker, which would be US and Australia 86, and then we got to decide what we're doing next after that.
So definitely once we get that done, and that's gonna be a doozy, we're gonna let you guys know what we decide. And hopefully you guys will enjoy what comes after 86. So.
And also, hey, Greg, what about me and TSS? Do we get our gig requests or?
I nailed the introduction in one take
you
without mistakes.
Yeah, he did actually. Yeah, he did it in one take. And you know what? Yeah, so he deserves credit.
But he still lost, so...
No, well, hold the fucking phone. I did not... No, I did not lose. Okay, I bungled the All-Star thing. Okay, I admit that. I was outvoted. I can accept that.
Yeah, but me and TSS agreed more, and... Actually, to be fair, I'll call it a tie.
Because we all fucked up, yeah.
Yeah, and with some careful edits, I can make sure that everybody's on an even playing field. That's what they call skill-based matchmaking. But
no, that's called a skill issue, Greg.
Oh well, never mind. Here's what I'm gonna do. I nailed the introduction.
Okay.
So I don't have to go through with that terrible punishment that I forced upon myself.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
But however, since you two showed up and are better than Ethan, because he's busy drowning in pussy right now.
I can't believe you fucking said that.
I'll say it again. No, I won't. But
okay.
So I'm gonna do this because you two showed up and he bailed.
Okay.
Because of things.
Okay.
And more things. You both get one Elton gig request from me.
Sure. And I have exactly the one that you're going to enjoy.
Okay. Which one would you like to request that I do?
MSG October 19th, 1995.
MSG 1995. October
19.
Okay. All right. So
because we want to hear David Payton's lovely sexy bass.
Yay!
All right. MSG 95. Okay.
We'll be listening to lots of that over the next couple of months anyway. I mean, I do it all the time anyway. But
I mean, I have to say, you know, honestly, no lie, I actually listened to a couple of the MSG shows from '95 this morning, because actually, David Payton's bass lines and some of the songs were different. It's like every time he gets on stage, he plays something different, and that's really cool.
He's just amazing.
Oh yeah.
I can't. I'll be listening to some of them soon over the next couple of weeks. So I'm looking forward to getting back into those.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful. Yeah, go ahead, Elton.
I request. Do you know what? Being as we've done a solo tour with Ray Cooper, I'll request a show with just Elton and Ray. I'd like you to give your opinion on the first Sydney show from 1979 because I think it's one of the best recordings you will find of Elton anywhere.
Well, good.
The tape is just mwah.
Well, that's good because I plan on uploading more 79 stuff. So, I mean, that works out perfectly. So, yes, I have two shows that are musically great, you know, and, you know, thankfully you didn't pick some other certain years because I would have flipped my shit.
Well, I could have picked some from '86, and I thought, hang on, we're doing a TierMaker for that anyway, so I don't need to request it.
It's like, I request you upload this. I'm like, well, you know we're going to be doing that, so
yeah, exactly.
I am going to upload it. All right, so we got something from 1979 and 1885. Excuse me,
1885.
Wait, sorry.
Somebody get the flux capacitor.
How am I supposed to upload something from 1885? I mean,
I don't know. Get a fucking Edison disc player or whatever the hell it is. Edison cylinder or some shit. I don't know.
How about some wax cylinders? I think we can record something. But yes, got two completely different shows, two completely different eras. But I'll be looking forward to going through those.
All right.
So yeah, it was a ton of fun. And we're finally giving Elton and Ray some much needed love on this channel.
Yes. I will be giving them even more love on the next TierMaker. I mean, Ray only appears for 2 gigs, but well, technically it's 27, but
yeah.
All right, it's like we can count. Okay, so we're going to
one cookie. Oh god.
Cookie.
But
no.
2003, man.
Yeah. There we go.
Was the one with the French guy from that year as well?
Yes.
Oh god.
Gotta love when musicians that didn't even play on the record. All
right. So I'll see you all later, and I will see you in the very absolutely near future.
All right.
And that's just the way it works. And sorry, Ethan, you missed a hell of a TierMaker. So
hey, Ethan, because you didn't turn up, you know what that means? You lose! Sorry, Ethan.
Sorry, Ethan. It's like
I'll do it once.
There you go.
All
but we managed.
And my brother calls. That's beautiful.
Oh, perfect timing.
Leave that in.
All right, leave that in. Leave that in, and we will say goodbye and wash your fucking hands.
That's right. Bye-bye.
Auf Wiedersehen, Gesundheit, farewell.
Yeah, au revoir and all those other stuff. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.